everybody doing? You guys hear me back there? Is that good? All right, so I feel so far away from you guys, but hopefully you can hear me pretty well, right? So my name is Raj Mehta. Lou mentioned I'm a therapist. I want to start off first by apologizing to you guys. Isn't that weird? I want to say I'm sorry as an adult to this population that's in this room for the mixed messages that you get. Because some people who are adults like me say that drugs and marijuana are really good and lots of fun. And other adults say that it's not good and lots of fun. Some adults say it should be legalized. Other adults say it shouldn't be legalized. You know, if you get caught vaping, you get in big trouble. But who sells you the vaping devices? Adults. Do you see what I'm saying to you guys? So it's very important that you hear an apology from me because it's hard being a kid in America today. In my age bracket, we had this just say no to everything. So there was no mixed message. It wasn't a great message, just say no to everything. But there wasn't like that convolution in there, well, do this but don't do that, or do it but don't get caught. And so you guys are part of this new generation of kids that are coming up that are living in a drug-saturated world. You got to become critical thinkers. I mean, am I with the best and the brightest in here? Yes, one more time. Am I in Cranbrook High School? Yes. And I'm with the best and the brightest in here? Yeah. Thank you. Don't be shy about that, right? So your guys' strengths is your intelligence, right? And your critical thinking. And sometimes you might even be smarter than an adult. And that will cause them problems when you talk to them, right? And it might even be about drugs. So we're going to talk about, substance abuse and what I do. I'm also a life coach. Does anybody know an addict? Raise your hands if you know an addict. You guys all have to raise your hands. I can prove it. Do you guys know Prince? You know Whitney Houston? You know Michael Jackson? You know Elvis Presley? You know the rapper Eminem? Right? Those are all people that are addicts. What's different about Eminem out of the people I just mentioned, though? What's different about him? He's been sober now for how long? Over 10 years. And you know what's funny about his clean date? It's 420. I'm not making this up. So Eminem has been sober. So when people tell you that everybody's getting high, you go, no, not Eminem. Right? But what about this rapper named Mac Miller that was very popular for a while? What happened to Mac Miller? Right? So we talk about drugs, and we talk about the seriousness about that, and we talk about basic knowing an addict, and you guys all know an addict. It's important to understand that I have a very difficult job. Imagine being me. I got to go to high schools and colleges and say drugs and alcohol are bad. I get like 1 hour of your time. That's a really, really difficult salesmanship job. Drugs and alcohol sell themselves. So I got a really cool t-shirt. I even trademarked the drug-free fist and fortune favors the bold. Imagine if your mom gave you a t-shirt that says, I can't get high, I'm on probation. Would you wear that t-shirt? Right? How about a t-shirt that says, I can't get high, my dad is watching me and drug testing me? That's not a very good t-shirt, right? So isn't it hard to market this idea behind being clean and sober? Is there anybody in this room that's not using drugs? Wow. Oh my God. So there are those people out there, right? No, I just want to ask that question because some of my clients come to me, right? Some of my clients, they say to me, and they're 15 years old, and they say, everybody's getting high. But you guys just raised your hands and said no. You guys know about Supreme Streetwear? Pretty cool, right? So imagine a drug-free t-shirt with Supreme Streetwear. And I think this lady up here, you're clean and sober, you said? You're sober? So how about a really cool Supreme t-shirt with drug-free at the front? There you go. It's really hard to make being sober cool when all these rappers say that it's not cool. The thing about my job, it's a very difficult job to motivate people to not use drugs and alcohol. So what do you guys think is going to cause a person to fall into addiction? Anybody have any ideas about that? Go ahead. Absolutely. Depression. Isn't it possible? Go ahead. Yep. Stress. Yeah. And the stress of being in this school and the performances that are on you guys, right? And yep. An escape, right? And over here?
Not necessarily here, but like socioeconomic status.
Yeah, if everybody around you is selling drugs and alcohol and you're in an inner city environment and there's a liquor store in every single corner, it's hard not to do that. If everybody keeps coughing on you and says don't catch a cold, is that really choice? right? So we have a wonderful young lady named Jordan who's going to read our first handout that talks about what can lead a person to drug and alcohol usage. Is that correct, Jordan? Start with that first section from the very top, if you don't mind. Read out loud.
School, family, and social pressure.
All right. Well, the first part, though, real fast. So addiction is a disease. You guys know that, right? Addiction is a disease because it's got symptoms and it's treatable. It is not a choice. Eating too many donuts is a choice. Having diabetes is not a choice. It's an effect of changing your blood sugar levels and all that kind of stuff, right? So we're talking about a cause and effect relationship. You can choose to use drugs, but once you've been addicted, your brain has been altered. That's not a choice. I always use the analogy of a cucumber and a pickle. You guys know how pickles are made, right? Take a cucumber and you soak it in vinegar over a period of time, and what happens to the cucumber? It turns into a pickle, right? So if you use drugs and alcohol for a long enough time, what happens to your brain? You pickle it, right? Let's say you wake up one day and you say, I don't want to be a pickle. And your brain says what to you? No longer a cucumber. Is it making sense? All right, is this helpful, you guys? Tell me if I'm making sense out there. Okay, so Jordan, go ahead. Why do people get high? Number one.
Low self-esteem.
Okay, number three.
To be accepted, sense of belonging.
Right, number four.
Feel like an adult or appear sophisticated.
Wow, that's interesting. To appear like an adult and appear sophisticated. Same with vaping and smoking cigarettes. Okay, go ahead.
Curiosity.
Curiosity killed the cat. Why people begin using drugs and alcohol? Because some people make it very interesting. Do any rap songs talk about getting high? If you listen to those songs over and over again, what might you want to think about doing at some point in the future? Wow, that's weird how that works. You know, somebody pointed out to me in the old days, rap music was about talking about, overcoming adversity and challenges, right? Then rap became gangster rap, where they talked about selling drugs. Then they changed the whole course of the game, and they talk about using and selling drugs. So to a young person coming out, who's kind of admiring these rappers and performers, at the very best case scenario, it's a mixed message, right? So beyond curiosity, what's next? What's next one? They're number 6.
Availability. Boredom.
You guys are too busy to be bored, right? Okay. How about the next one? Number 7.
Risk-taking behavior as a challenge.
Somebody told you can't do that. Isn't that amazing? Someone's got a cell phone out, right? Imagine you got a boyfriend. He looks at you and goes, I'm going to use the bathroom right now. Don't look in my cell phone. Now I want to do that. Right? Why is that? Is that human nature? Someone tells you, don't look at my cell phone while I use the restroom. How come all of a sudden you want to do that? Yes. But also, it's human nature. We don't like being told what not to do. That's why that whole thing about just say no doesn't always work with some people, because you make it more enticing, right? Okay, how about the next one? Yeah, I got my own sense of status now. How about number 9? Yeah, the young lady mentioned if you have a lot of depression, if you have a lot of anxiety, many of my clients have PTSD. Use your imagination. Many of my clients have long-term heroin abuse histories. I even have 2 clients that are victims of sexual trafficking that were held in a hotel in Detroit that's been knocked down since then, and they were held against their will for about 2 months at a time. Those stories are horrific, and you don't bounce back from that. You follow what I'm saying? It's a version of PTSD. And when you have that going on, and you have all this emotional pain, what are you going to seek to make that go away? A painkiller. And oftentimes that painkiller will be what? An opiate, right? Like heroin or Oxycontin or Xanax. Make that pain go away, right? So people have had bad things happen to them. They're predisposed to addiction. So when you hear about a person having a drug or alcohol problem, especially with regards to heroin, you want to recognize the fact before you judge somebody for that. Think about the fact you have no idea what they've been through. I have some clients that are soldiers that spent time in Afghanistan and Iraq. 2 guys that were snipers that saw really, really horrific things. They went to those countries with no drug or alcohol problem. But when they came back, they had nightmares, they had night terrors, and they had all these flashbacks of those incidents They began reaching for alcohol, drinking not to think, smoking weed not to feel, and eventually that became an addiction. Is it making sense what I'm saying to you guys? So before we judge somebody, oftentimes we'll realize they're actually self-medicating a mental health issue. Next one, please.
Sense of mastery, new identity.
Yeah, if all my friends are really good at soccer and I'm not, I might find something that I'm good at, right? And how about number 10?
Reliable effect in an unreliable world.
If I have a messed up family that's very unreliable, unpredictable, my dad's an alcoholic, my mom's got mental health issues, my home is not stable, my home is a scary place, when I reach for that one substance, I know it'll always make me feel that way. And so as a shortcut to dealing with reality, you can fall into a trap of addiction. Is that making sense? Okay, how about the early signs that will predict this? How about number 1?
Associated with drug users.
So why is it bad if your goal is to stay sober to associate with people that are abusing or selling drugs? Why is it a bad idea if your goal is to be sober? Yep. Peer pressure is very strong for you guys at this age, right? And so everyone wants to say that they're very independent-minded, but you'd be surprised how much you guys dress alike, talk alike, listen to the same music, the same movies, but everybody's very independent. When they get really honest about it in high school, peer pressure and social pressure is very, very powerful. And when people ask you to do something, you want to kind of get along. We're tribal by our nature. And so there's an old-fashioned saying, if you keep going to the barber shop often enough, you end up with a haircut, right? So the same idea, you keep hanging around people that use drugs and alcohol, you begin to do that kind of stuff. All right, next one.
Lack of attachment or lack of relationship with parents.
So what is it about having a dysfunctional family that makes someone vulnerable to using and abusing drugs? Yep.
Just from a reality to escape from things like if their parents or if their dad's an alcoholic and the parents like from abusing their mother, abusive mother or father, they find that as an escape way to get away from it.
You're exactly right. Yep. Another thing is too is that if you come from a dysfunctional family, right, you might have people talking about you and you feel embarrassed. Social media is very powerful, and people talk about each other, talk about their moms and dads, and if your person that you love as a parent has a mental health issue or an addiction issue, you might feel embarrassed or ashamed about what they're doing and how they're behaving, and so you seek a way of escaping that, right? Okay, how about the next one?
Ineffective parenting, mixed messages, inconsistent consequences.
Yeah, that's common sense. How about number 4?
Caregiver or sibling that abuses drugs has mental health issues.
Having an older brother, older sister, that's really, really cool, right? And look up to older people when we're this age right now. They're in college and they're doing something different. All of a sudden, I want to be like that person. We tend to want to basically emulate other people that we look up to if they're doing good or bad. And it might even seem cool in the time, right? After that one?
Aggressive behavior.
Yeah, it's a bad tendency. It leads to addiction. How about number 6?
Lack of self-control, impulsivity.
Some people don't have good self-discipline. How about number 7?
Poor social skills.
Yeah, if I don't have very many friends, I might feel very lonely and frightened. If I don't do well socially with other people, if I always feel awkward, always feel anxiety, right? I'm going to avoid people and maybe find my way into substance abuse. How about the next one?
Poor school performance.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure in this school to do good in school. A lot of pressure to do good in school. Yeah. And so you guys have to recognize the fact that when you're dealing with that, your job is to do the best that you can under your current circumstances, right? The pressure is very, very intense, and Luke kind of commented on that. But you have to realize to yourself, be a critical thinker. I can only do my best, and trust me on this. As long as you truly have done your best, you never hold your head down low. You always hold your head up high. We're not always going to get A's, but as long as you've honestly done your best, there's no shame in that at all whatsoever. Okay, next one.
Incarcerated parent.
Yeah, that's part of the adverse childhood experiences, and that's a really bad one. I deal with many moms that have been locked up and incarcerated for nonsense drug charges, and the damage to their kids going in and out of foster care. Oftentimes the system will do more damage than the drugs actually do. How about the next one?
Easy availability. Crime effect. Watching other people. Media.
Now we got kids smoking weed in middle school. Why is that a bad thing? Well, studies show the earlier you begin using substances and abusing substances, the higher rates are for addiction. We don't want kids in middle school smoking weed and drinking. It's just common sense. They're not ready for that. They can't mentally handle that. Is that helpful? So how about that really cool blue text box there, in the beginning? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Text box, Jordan, in the beginning. Is that making sense? Is that straightforward there? No complications on that one? Okay. Let's see what Raj has to say about if you think you know somebody with a problem like this, how are you going to help them? Let's talk about that. Go ahead.
If you think you know an addict, the best way to handle them is to compare facts and services. Separate the person that you care about from your disease. The disease is bad and the person is sick. I love you, but I hate your disease. I will do nothing to help you get high. I will do everything possible to help you get sober. You can love an addict and still hate your disease. It's actually good policy. Obviously, it's important for anyone dealing with an addict to not tolerate behavior that risks their health, safety, well-being, or sanity. Remember, it takes a great deal of courage to challenge and confront a person who is abusing drugs and alcohol. In reality, most people lack this courage and end up leaving a person who is in trouble alone.
I don't like that part. I don't like that at all. Don't leave them alone. You got to help them. Yep.
This is unimpressive and common. You don't have to be an addict to benefit from not using drugs or alcohol.
Prove your point.
A lot of people don't get high, not because they were arrested or their mom is watching them, but because America is competitive. You don't want to be chemically restrained by drug abuse, withdrawals, and hangovers, watching other people pass you by. This is a stark reality. You will never reach your full potential of using drugs.
So, thoughts or comments on that so far? Yes. No, excellent question, right? So let's talk about what drugs are bad, which drugs are not bad. I always go back to intentions. So, in my experience, medical marijuana is a godsend for people that have serious physical issues. I have 2 clients that are using medical marijuana, and they have wonderful lives from that. One woman is in stage 4 pancreatic cancer, uses marijuana in a vaporizer 3 times a day, and has a high quality of life. One of my friends from high school was hit on his motorcycle. He's paralyzed. He was on huge amounts of Oxycontin, spent most of his day drooling on himself, not able to do anything, got on medical marijuana in a vaporizer 3 times a day, and is now in a wheelchair basketball league. So with regards to serious physical issues, marijuana can help people, and it is a medicine. However, in my experience, when marijuana is used to treat mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and PTSD, in my experience, it seems to be effective in the short run, but in the long run, it seems to make those symptoms actually worse. It's like Oxycontin is a great drug for people that have cancer or in a wheelchair having surgery. But taking Oxycontin when all that is over with is not a good idea. So remember, drugs are not good or bad. It's your intent to use them. And by the way, the intent of the person giving them to you also is very important, which brings us to Adderall, right? So, I have lots of clients, and, some of my clients went to U of M and they got caught. Imagine what a felony would do to your future. You guys know what felonies are, right? So why are felonies really bad? They can stop you from getting student loans and bank loans. You can't live in certain areas, right? So felonies are really, really bad. Yep. Yeah. So here's the thing. Pardon me? Yeah. It keeps you out of the good job market. Absolutely. Right. So in Michigan, they hand out felonies like candy. I'll give you an example. One of my clients was a student at U of M, and he went to a party, and he wasn't even drinking, and the cops showed up. And the cops show up, and they pat everybody down. They said, "Who's been drinking?" He says, "I haven't been drinking." Everyone's got to pull their pockets out, and he's got an Adderall in his pocket. And the cop goes, "Is this Adderall yours?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You got a prescription for it?" He goes, "Well, no." He goes, "My friend gave it to me so I can study for a test." And they cuff him up, and now he's got a felony charge. You guys know that any amount of a prescription drug without a prescription, a controlled substance, is a felony. Half of Adderall in your pocket, half of Xanax in your pocket, half of Vicodin in your pocket. Doesn't belong to you, no prescription, that's a felony charge. Every state is different. Is that amazing? So think about that. And by the way, cocaine, heroin, if someone is doing cocaine or heroin, the residue on a mirror, The law's written 0 to 25 grams. If they can scrape it off a mirror, it's a felony possession charge. I've had clients that were arrested by having a mirror with some cocaine residue on it from an old party. They go to get a job, and an employer says, it says on your record you have a possession of cocaine felony conviction. And the guy says with a straight face to the future employer, yeah, that was some cocaine residue on the mirror. And the employer says, I don't believe you. But it's true. So the heads up on Adderall, you guys know that ADHD is a real thing, right? And there's a lot of competition in school. What's bad about Adderall, though, chemically? You guys know what the chemical name of Adderall is? Amphetamine salts, right? So they did a study on methamphetamine and Adderall in a laboratory setting. People had previously abused methamphetamine. They said, we want to figure out if you can tell the difference. So they give them one day a pill of methamphetamine, next day a pill of Adderall. When taken in a laboratory setting orally, people cannot tell the difference between methamphetamine and Adderall. They're chemical cousins. If you have ADHD, there's like 10 other drugs that you can actually take. Adderall should be the last stop on the train. And I've seen clients begin to get into Adderall and actually have all kinds of problems with other drugs. They begin to drink excessively. They can't sleep at night. They become psychotic. And I think that, you go to any other country and they talk about, if you have ADHD, in most other countries like in Europe, they won't even medicate you for that. America is very unique. They'll give you a controlled substance Schedule II narcotic in the same family of controlled substances as morphine and OxyContin for a condition of not being able to focus in a classroom. And you as a critical thinker got to say, is that doctor really my best friend? Does he have my best intentions at heart? I can't answer the question for you, but I talked to you about my agenda. Who told you that these prescription drugs were your friend, and how much money are they making by giving you these drugs? America is one of the few countries in the world that actually allows us to actually advertise prescription drugs on television. You can't do that in Europe. You can't do that in South America. You can't do that in Asia. It's illegal to advertise prescription drugs on TV, but not in America and not in New Zealand. Why do you guys think that is? Americans are overprescribed. And that's a fact. That's why we have Pharmageddon. You read the slide up there, right?